In this lesson, we are going to implement user authentication. For this purpose, we are going to install latest version of NextAuth using this command. You can use pnpm if you like instead of npm. To do that, you need to install pnpm first. It's a package manager for npm and it's much faster and better than npm for installing packages. Open a new terminal and install pnpm. At the time of recording this video, the version 5 should be installed using @beta. So I just install it like this. At the time of watching this video, you may have the version 5 stable, so you can use it without @beta. That's it, it's installed. Let's install React Hook form using pnpm install or add, whatever you like, works. Good. We have React Hook form to create sign-in form. And it's time to set environment variables for NextAuth. They are auth URL and auth secret. Open env file and set auth URL to localhost colon 3000 and auth secret to something secret. Next step is creating auth.ts to create configuration for NextAuth. Go to live folder, right-click, new file, auth.ts. First step is exporting config constant as an object. In this object, we're gonna configure NextAuth authentication. First step is defining provider. It's an array, so we have options to define Google, GitHub, and other authentication providers. But here we are going to use credential provider to authenticate by user email and password. So what we need to do is to call credential provider, import it from NextAuth, and as parameter to this function, pass an object that contains credential, and in the credential define email and password. Next step is defining authorize function in the credential provider. It accepts credential as parameter, and when user enter email and password and click on sign in, this function handle the request. So it's clear what we need to do here. First of all, we need to connect to the database, import dbconnect. If there is no payload, return null, not authenticated. Then import user model and call find one to find the email based on the email from sign-in page and get the user. If user exists, check the password using bcrypt package, import it like this. And then if its match is true, return the user. It is successful authentication. And if there is an error, return null to show error message. Go to the user model and put question mark right after model to get rid of error in the middleware. Save the code and let's go for the next step. It's right after the provider, define pages, because we are going to have custom made pages for sign in and register. After pages, define callbacks in the NextAuth config, and the first callback is authorized. Here is the authorized function. It will be run on user authentication. We accept request and auth as parameter. Inside that, we have protected path. So user need to be authenticated to access shipping, payment, place order, profile, admin, and order/ID of order. I'm using regular expression to cover dynamic values for the order ID. If the URL is in this list, then check the authentication. If auth is null, return false, user cannot access to this page. And if we have value for authentication, using double exclamation mark, it returns true. Otherwise, return true. It means that all other pages will be public to all users. Save the code and go for the next callback function. It's JWT function. In this function, we accept user trigger session and token. If user exists, we fill the token.user with the user information from the database. If the trigger is update, it means that we are updating the user profile, and if session exists, then update the user with the updated email and name. Let's go for the last callback function. It's session, and what we did here is to fill the session.user with the token.user from the previous step. When we call useSession, this function returns the user information for us in the client-side authentication. Save the code and go for the next step. We just simply need to export const this object from nextAuth function. Import nextAuth as a default import from nextAuth package and pass the configuration as parameter to nextAuth function. Then destructure the result and export get and post from handler object. Auth function, we use it a lot in this course. Sign in and sign out for handling user signing and user sign out. Save the code. Let's go for next step. The next step is defining middleware.ts in the root of project. Go to the root, at the empty space, right-click, new file, middleware.ts. First line of code in the middleware.ts is this code, exporting auth as middleware from the auth.ts that we have defined here. By having this line of code, all URL will be passed to the middleware and the user authentication will be checked based on the authorize function that we have here. I'm going to get rid of some URLs including images, APIs. So I need to add config, export it, and in the matcher, get rid of API, static images, and fav icon. Next step is creating route.ts in auth/nextauth/folder. Go to API folder and create auth folder, API, new folder, auth. Inside that, create .nextauth inside a square bracket, right-click, new folder, and inside that, define route.ts. Right-click, new file, route.ts. In this file, export get and post from lib/auth. So the export of get and post will be used in this file to authenticate user for get and post requests. Next step is creating provider component to wrap the whole application. Go to components folder, new file, provider.tsx. Here is the code for provider component. Define async function provider. It's a server-side component, server component, and import auth from auth.ts and session provider from nextauth/react. This component accepts children as a React node and call auth as an async function and return the result in the session. Then wrap the children in session provider and pass session as props to the session provider component. So the children will be the layout and we have access to the use session to the session in the nextauth throughout the client components. To do that, go to the layout.tsx in app folder and right after body, define provider, move the div inside provider and import it from components folder. Save the code and let's go for the next step. Here, I need to create sign-in form. First of all, create sign-in folder and create form component. In app front, right-click, sign-in. Inside that, new file, form.tsx. First step is defining form component and export it. Then get the session using useSession, import it from nextauth/react, and rename the data to session. Call use search params from next/navigation and extract the callback URL in the query string and put it in the callback URL. Also, we need to redirect user in this page, so I need to use router hook from next/navigation. Right before form, define type inputs and as an object that contains email and password. Then, right after use router, define use form hook from React hook form. Import it from React hook form. Pass the default value for this form to email and password equal to empty string and get register handle submit and form state from use form hook. After this, define use effect, and if session exists, redirect user to the callback URL, because if user is already logged in, there is no need to be in this page and we need to redirect user to the callback URL. Import use effect from React. After this, it's time to define form submit function. The return type of form submit is submit handler from React hook form with inputs as generic type. It's an async function that accepts form, and in the form we extract email and password and call sign-in function from nextauth/react. The first parameter is the provider, its credential, and second parameter is the payload, which includes email and password. Let's go for the return part. What I'm gonna return is a div. Maximum width is 24 rem using max width small. Put items in the center, use cart to create border, set background color, and create margin vertically. Inside that, create cart body and set heading font to sign in. Save the file, select a product, add to cart, go to cart page, and proceed to checkout. As you see, there is no sign in page. Let's go for it. In the sign in, right click new file, page.tsx. In the sign in page, import metadata and form from the sign in folder and set the title of this page to sign in, then export async function sign in, it's a server component, and return form component from the same folder. Save the file, go back to form. At the very beginning, make it client component to get rid of this error. Awesome. Good. We are ready to go for shaping input boxes for email and password. Right after heading 1, check the query string for having error in the URL. If there is an error, show the error message. Make sure that the error is equal to credentials sign in, and if it is, show invalid email password, otherwise show the error message as it is. Use alert text error to show error in red color. After this, check successful. If everything is successful, if we have success, query string, show the value of it in the green color. After that, it's time to create a form. Set on submit to handle submit form submit function by using React hook form. And as a first input box, shape email field. In a div, create a label and input box, call register on the input box to register email, make it required, and use this pattern to make sure that the email is valid. If there is an error, show the error message for this input box. Second input box is for password, label, input box, error message. Here is the result. And the last one is a button in a div, create a button of type btn primary, full width, disable if is submitting is true, show a spinner. The caption of this button is sign in. Let's test it. Enter wrong info, sign in, email is not valid, sign in, invalid email or password, and from data.ts, enter correct email and password and sign in. Awesome. We successfully signed in and we get redirected to the homepage. So we need to show the username instead of sign in button. Go to menu.tsx. At the very beginning of menu component, right before return, define sign out handler and call sign out, import it from next auth/react and pass the callback URL to sign in page. And in the return part, get rid of li for sign in and replace it with this code. If session exists, get the session from use session from next-auth/react like this and rename the data to session. If session exists and session.user exists, it means that user is authenticated. So I need to render this li. In the li, create a dropdown using Daisy UI, create a label, and inside that show the username in the label and use this SVG to create caret down. It should be like a drop-down box. And then when user click on the username, this UL appears. In this UL, I have a list item and it's only sign out. In the next lesson, we add profile, order history, and other menu items to this UL. Otherwise, just show the sign in button, but this time I need to call sign in from next-auth/react like this. There we are. We have John. If I click, I have sign out. When I click on sign out, I will be signed out and get redirected to the sign in page. Let's try again. Enter admin@signexample.com, sign in. Here is John and sign out. Great. We successfully implemented user authentication in this lesson. Until next lesson, bye-bye.